Hello, and welcome to Bearded Reviews, where I'll be bringing you games you may not have heard of or want to know a little bit more about before you buy. Today we'll be taking a look at Surviving the Abyss, which is currently in early access. Surviving the Abyss is an underwater city builder which is a bit dark, and by dark I mean the story as well as the game. In an alternate history during the Cold War, the idea of cloning humans has a bit more interest, though publicly it's frowned upon. So because the public doesn't want us to do it, we just won't tell them and hide it. What could go wrong? To make the task more difficult, we not only decided to hide it, but hide it at the bottom of the ocean because what could go wrong? You're given the task of overseeing the construction of this underwater lab and pushing the boundaries of human cloning using aquatic fauna DNA. What could go wrong? Now, I'm no biologist, so I can't comment on how much we share in common with Nemo, but something seems a bit fishy. Beyond the risks of what may happen by splicing people with stuff that has gills and tentacles, there is also another problem. Turns out the dark bottom of the ocean isn't all that safe. Without getting into spoiler territory, it's simple. Always keep the lights on. If you have a phobia of the deep ocean or of the dark, maybe even both, this game is going to tap into that fear beautifully. Starting with a modest hub building, you'll begin your venture into the unknown, gathering resources from the seafloor in an effort to make your base self-sufficient, and self-sufficient it must be, because the people you work for on the surface have no intention of ferrying resources down to you. This is very much a survival city builder with an extreme resource management. If you like the challenge of games like Frostpunk, this will be right up your alley. Power, food, oxygen, people, building materials are all in limited supply. Time is also not on your side, with people's lifespans being quite short due to your current lack of understanding of cloning. You will find yourself in a constant balancing act trying to have enough personnel while not going beyond how many you can support. Death and birth rate constantly tugging at each other to derail your plans. Build your base, push back the darkness, and did those shadows just move? Welcome to the Abyss. Visually, this game plays really well into the nature of its story. You can't see the map, just what is lit. While the concept of fog of war isn't new, you're more accustomed to it when in a top-down view of an RTS-style game. Here, however, in the city builder, where the camera angles make you feel far more in amongst and part of your base, means the sharp barrier of light to darkness beyond your vision is almost claustrophobic. It's an odd feeling when you're used to overviewing a scene in an almost deity-like sense of awareness typical of most city builders, planning out your base to best move towards resources and efficiency, to instead be denied and have to feel like the people living inside your base not knowing what lies just beyond the floodlights. You're acutely aware that beyond your lights, you have no clue, none at all, diddly squat as to what is happening a metre away from your light radius. If you run out of power and some of your lights do go off, you're then hit with the apprehension of not being able to see what is happening to those previously illuminated buildings. Shadows dance around them. Is it just kelp, fish, or something else? Visually, this game has had some good work done to it. A lot of time has clearly gone into the atmosphere it gives off. The buildings and vehicles have clearly been put together well to represent familiar old sci-fi like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or Thunderbirds. Based on the story set being in the 70s, everything fits together with a future set in the past. The pace and learning curve of the game right now isn't great, but I am leaning more to this being the title is early access and needs balancing opposed to a bad game. If you've never played city builders with a high emphasis on resource management, this is not a good place to start right now. I have this in my own head genre of an extreme resource management. A step beyond a survival city builder. You have to be acutely aware of how every resource is created and used, even down to how quickly that resource takes to produce, as well as how long it will last. Currently this game is high difficulty, but as I say, I believe this will change as it develops in early access. There is a clear balancing that needs to happen. Some buildings don't make sense as to why you would build them. The advanced coal generator is worse than the basic one in almost every way. The advanced housing benefits don't really account for how expensive it is to build. The constant battle to create more personnel while not overpopulating can get tedious as the fine line between starvation, suffocation, or buildings not being manned is so fine you can't see it. There is also a bug with the habitats, and I'm 99% sure this is unintentional. If you remove a building from a habitat, it results in the habitat becoming barren. While there is a building that restores habitats, it doesn't work on them. And you are clearly meant to replace buildings as your research develops new ones meant to take their place. I did try to report this bug, but unfortunately the bug reporting system wasn't working. There are also issues when you start to build outposts and the UI amalgamates resource usage, which can cause you headaches as you try to work out which base needs more power or oxygen. But all of this hopefully will change over time. Is the game fun? I think it definitely has potential, but there are areas that clearly need more work. Beyond the difficulties that I mentioned previously, something I would like to become far more prevalent in the game is the story and the world you're in. I preface this again with that it is early access and getting game mechanics working properly takes precedence over story. I do love the story though, the intro drew me in, I wanted to know more. The tutorial of the basics hinted that you would learn more, but then, because of the pace of the game, you seemingly forget about the story, as everything becomes about why can't I have enough personnel to man buildings. I found myself for long swaths of time making zero progress, as all I was doing was creating enough personnel just to run the basic functions of the base. Resource gathering and research firmly turned off. Just as I'd get enough personnel to run the basics, I would get hit with a notification that a batch of clones was reaching the end of their life, and so within a day, I'd be back to being understaffed. This cycle could go on to up to an hour of real-world gaming time, all the while constantly churning out new personnel. The finding and mixing of DNA, I can see where they're going with it, but right now it's very basic. If I were going to be splicing random animal DNA into the human genome, there needs to be more than just impacting how long clones will live. I'd also note that right now the cloning is broken, in a way that benefits the players though. If you can mix together fish that result in 0% mutation, you create immortal clones, which I'm reasonably certain isn't the purpose of the game. Though, what I would say is, I would have liked to have discovered these particular fish far sooner after 10 hours of trying to keep on top of my clone deaths. I'd like to see the pitfalls of cloning expanded, which they may plan to do. All this terrible experimentation we do could result in horrific mutations or a whole new sentient species. One final part in regards to the fun is what is out in the darkness. Hopefully we're going to get much more than that is currently in the game, as while the first time it happens it makes your blood run cold and you wonder what the hell you're going to do to stop it. The same thing repeats so often though, it becomes little more than a notification to worry about. Overall, this game is the epitome of early access. If you like city builders with a high emphasis on resource management, then I would definitely recommend wishlisting this game. As to purchasing it, that very much depends on how polished you like your game to be. If you like getting involved in the community and reporting bugs and making suggestions, this clearly has scope. If you want something that will work like a fully finished game, however, I would hold off until there's been a lot of updates and balancing done. Surviving the Abyss is available on Steam, developed by Flair Studios and published by Paradox Arc. I've been Bearded Squire. For more game reviews, please drop a like and subscribe, and to be extra awesome, please drop a comment on what you think of the game, what you think I've missed from the video, or games you'd like me to review in the future. Thanks for watching, and whatever you choose to do with the rest of your day, I hope you have a fantastic time. And until I next see you, until then, goodbye.